You never know when disaster will strike. Insidious tyranny, government cover-ups, outright lies and blind deceptions, enemies of the state, corruption at the highest levels, alien deceptions, flat earth conspiracies, wars and rumors of wars. Where have all the truth in media gone? We will stand our ground with the truth. No fake news here. Come join us on www.kdov.us for the latest in ground-shaking news in Bible prophecy. Hello, my name is Mars, and I am host of the Watchers Prophecy News on KDOV Radio, America's best Christian radio station. A NASA scientist is warning that Earth is due for an extinction-level event like a comet or an asteroid strike, and claims there won't be anything we can do to stop it. Now, on the last show, I told you that JPL was indeed tracking an object that they have not released any details about, but to the highest levels of government. A gentleman named Joseph Nunn, an award-winning scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, has told attendees during Monday's annual American Geophysical Union meeting in San Francisco that policymakers should start preparing for such a possible cataclysmic strike despite the extremely long odds of it happening. However, he did mention that this could happen at any time. He says, on the other hand, there are the extinction level events. Things like dinosaur killers, they're 50 to 60 million years apart, essentially. Never know when they might strike. You could say, of course, we're due, but that's a random course at that point. Making matters even worse, this news claims that humanity isn't even close to being prepared for such a threat, the Guardian has now reported. The biggest problem, basically, is there's not a hell of a lot that we can do about this at the very moment. Now, I found that statement very unnerving because for a man to use such language, he apparently does not believe in the power of God, nor has he read much of the scriptures. Our earth will not end that way. In fact, we will eventually have a new Earth. Earth is calling on NASA to bring 2 spacecraft into existence, a interceptor rocket and a observer spacecraft. If a comet or asteroid poses a strong enough threat to Earth, the rocket, which could be capable of carrying a nuclear bomb, could migrate the possibility of a sneaky asteroid coming in from some place that's very hard to observe, like the backside of the sun, he said. But NASA would need to drastically reduce the typical 5-year span between a mission approval and launch to make any such last-minute detection attempts a possibility. You do understand that our current ICBMs can't just be shot into space to shoot down some asteroid. The math there simply doesn't exist to make those kind of rockets work like that. It's really imperative that we reduce that reaction time, Nuth said, so we must do something. Now, I went and did a little research, and Space.com reports that NASA would need to make a formal request to Congress to even approve such a mission. I'm telling you that that's not going to happen. Well, there's no defense against these things, and we know that wormwood is coming. We're talking about a considerable amount of money to do these things, Nuth said. The NASA request will probably be for several $100 million to produce one of these spacecraft, and would be an event very similar to going to the moon as far as operation and cost. Now, we know that's a pretty high price to pay. I don't think Donald Trump's going to do those things. Nuth also stressed that he wasn't speaking on behalf of NASA, saying he's not a policymaker at the space agency. In other words, he's trying to get away from some of his earlier comments, telling us that, it's several 100 million years, between these things, but, we might be tracking one right now. I'm not even in the administration of NASA, he said, so it's more of a scientific recommendation. Save yourself. Tell you what, things are really starting to look tricky. Now, you may all remember that we just had a close encounter just about 2 years ago when a full-size comet passed within cosmic spitting distance of Mars. The cosmic snowball of frozen gases was discovered about 22 months before its near collision with the red planet. If you look at the schedule for these high reliability spacecraft and launching them, it takes 5 years to even launch a spacecraft. Spacecraft that are even routinely going to the ISS have been planned for years. So anytime there's a mission even to refuel the ISS with food or other supplies, those things have been planned for years in advance. Now, NASA places a high priority on finding and characterizing any hazardous asteroid and comets as much in advance as possible to have sufficient time to protect our home planet from a potential impact. This statement reads, and he continues to quote, "The agency continues to aggressively develop strategies on paper and plans tracking efforts." We know that there are tracking efforts going on, and develop options for mediation of such objects as we can find for planetary defense. The statement continued, "To date, approximately 95% of potentially hazardous asteroids and comets larger than a kilometer in size that could pose a danger to Earth have been found." That is a outright lie. Yeah, 95% of the hazardous asteroids and comets larger than a kilometer may have been spotted, but that's certainly not all of them. And there are no detected impact threats for the next 100 years, he states. That is also big, fat, juicy lie. That's not what the top JPL science tracking team for near-Earth objects says. He says one's on the way, and when why ask, isn't this published? He says it is because the powers that be do not want the population in a panic. Now, I got this from 2-Star General, so I know what I'm talking about. I've got the inside dope on this. He even worked at NASA for a while. Yet all the way down the military chain of command, it seems that there are ones in the know. There are memos, and even, as I said, my 2-star military contact has assured me this thing is coming. Still do not have the numbers yet, but it is coming, I hope, from the southwest, from what I understand. And that unless you have a 10-inch scope or better with fancy attachments, you'd be hard-pressed to even see it. However, it's amazing, funny that my contact says an entire manual is currently, right now, being written by emergency military planners on what each commander should do if such a massive event should take place. Imagine that. All right, in other news tonight, the top U.S. military official in the Pacific has warned Beijing off taking control over the disputed South China Sea. This is a new warning, and it was yet the most vocal warning yet America has received. While an American think tank has published photos, it says that prove China has installed weapons on several separate man-made islands in the disputed maritime route. We will not allow a shared domain to be closed down. This is from a U.S. Navy admiral. We will not allow a shared domain to be closed down unilaterally, no matter how many bases are built on artificial features in South China Sea. Commander of the U.S. Pacific Command, Admiral Harry Harris, said during a speech in Sydney, Australia yesterday, "We will cooperate when we can, but we will be ready to confront if we must." Now, the Chinese defense minister has warned the tense situation in the Chinese Sea now, as of today, poses the greatest threat of confrontation the world has ever seen. nuclear confrontation and has called upon the military, police, and general population to be ready to defend the country's territorial integrity. Now, Chang Wang-Kwang, what a name, has made the statement while inspecting military installations in China's eastern coastal Zhejiang province. State news, their state news is reported without really giving the timing of these comments. Now, the U.S. Navy has indeed this week, I've checked up on this, and even from Virginia, ports in Virginia, have dispatched warships and military planes, more planes to Guam. Guam now is nothing but a big fat airport. You just wouldn't even imagine Henry Field. It's loaded with bombers. We're ready for something in that area to go down. The U.S. Navy has dispatched these warships to the immediate proximity of these disputed islands this week and is claiming it has done so to ensure the principles of freedom to navigate in international waters. Now, Obama is doing this just to give Trump a very hard time his first day in office. He is pushing China to the absolute limit, not giving them any recourse whatsoever, and this fleet of ships is due to arrive in about 8 more days. Now, Washington has also been involved in a number of military drills in that region recently, which has done nothing but provoke China. But we have dozens of U.S. military bases that are literally encircling China in a great big noose. And America's historic nuclear presence in the Pacific region, a war between the greatest military power and the world's second largest economy, it's no longer unthinkable, folks. China is warning it's coming to a head, and it's coming now. They have just armed all these little islands. They have put weapons of war, long-range standoff missiles, on these islands in the last 3 days. I got some news on this. In the West, the threat of China is becoming very, very big news. The media is beating the drums of war as the world is being primed to regard China as this some new enemy. Well, to the United States Navy, it's always been enemy number one. The UK-based Australian journalist says the mainstream media, such as CNN, get exclusive access to classified U.S. surveillance flights over disputed islands in South China Sea, which have become a flashpoint for war. And they are now showing the placements in the last 3 days, as I said, of new long-range anti-ship missiles being placed upon all of these islands. Now, we've practically done the same. Japan's island of Okinawa has become the front line of beckoning for war with China as far as the United States is concerned. While the outstanding nonviolent resistance of the local people challenges our basic pivot toward Asia, there are so many other plots and things going on with Russia and all over the world. But what we're seeing, or what we're starting to see, is a developing plot by Obama to, as I said, make Trump's first day in office one ready to be fired. That is for certain. Now, in 1962, if you just go back a little bit with me, America's atomic weapons were almost launched from the island of Okinawa, if you can believe that, when a military base there allegedly received an order to prepare for an attack on China. But it was abruptly ordered to stop. One of the American servicemen whose job was to fire Mace cruise missiles told the Fidra magazine that China was Washington's nuclear target during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I know that's true because it was not just Russia. China had plans to jump in, take over the world. See, meantime, Trump is already calling China out on the mat. And he's not really helping the situation, not realizing that Obama is setting him up. Instead, he's standing up to every threat by making counter threats. The internet site, Jane's Military, is now giving 4 out of 5 stars to a fast and furious naval and nuclear war, or some naval nuclear engagement by the United States and China in the next 6 months. They're giving this 4 out of 5 stars. Jane's a very respected magazine, and I respect their think tank's opinion. They've stated that no one is really watching. No one is really watching what we're seeing, and we expect this to cave in to a much larger conflict in the very soon future. One more outstanding U.S. war station is located on the South Korean island of Jeju, where a reconnaissance movement has also been persistent against America's naval base there. But one of the most provocative military bases in the world ever was built right there on that little island. It's never talked about. And it's built on the World Heritage Land Site, less than 400 miles from Shanghai. According to the film that I've seen, it's all their missiles there are aimed at China and China's lifelines, and routinely track Chinese shipping. These are missiles with radar that track Chinese shipping. So I understand China's concern here. United States is definitely leveled down on them, and apparently they think they can do something about it now. Obama's certainly willing to mess up Trump's presidency with war right off the bat, willing to do so and take that all that responsibility off himself and put it right in the hands of Donald Trump. The world is basically an oil trade and resource magnet aimed at China. And you know that just yesterday, this very base I'm talking about was in the news. It was put on the highest alert, and U.S. warships are headed there, as I said, from this and other ports, what it seems like in a one-upmanship of real war with China. Now, it said that the U.S. may have nuclear cruise missiles on the island pointed at China. This is a fact. My sources telling me they routinely track Chinese shipments with these missiles. So get ready, folks. Something is about to break there in China. China's adding a serious standoff missile of their own and anti-ship capability to every single one of their islands in the last 3 days. Half of those are already operational, according to reports, and more will follow, all in a test showdown over Trump and his friendly status with the nation of Taiwan. Serious Chinese military general Jun DC has said yesterday Trump's first real test will be to see how deadly serious we are, even to the point of world war, if Trump makes any more illegal gestures toward Taiwan or trying to help them in any sort of way. This will become a shooting match that America will surely lose. That's coming right out of Beijing, folks. And I want you to understand, in my opinion, the Chinese and the Russians know that it will just be a matter of time till the situation in the South China Sea and or the Ukraine and many other flashpoints will lead to some type of severe armed conflict, maybe even nuclear. Think tank planners are trying to contain the war in the adjacent areas just so they can focus on those two, South China Sea and Ukraine. Starting to look already like there is a Merry Christmas for Donald Trump presidency, and it's looking that he better do something really fast. All right, let's skip on to this. In yet another world flashpoint that is turning south very quickly, Turkey is pouring tanks and troops into Syria. These 4 divisions that we told you on last show are now pouring into Syria on an alarming scale. What is Erdogan really up to? It seems that the Syrian people's freedom in Aleppo is about to be very short-lived. The ceasefires over civilians are dying in masses, and Erdogan seems bent on carrying out his threat on toppling President Assad. This is very bad news for Iran and Russia, who, frankly, could care less about Turkey and have now decided to take joint action versus Turkey. This has angered Putin. It's angered Putin to the point where his generals have already told the Syrian army that they should start targeting Turkish forces now wherever they are found in the entire country of Syria. I fully expect big news next from Turkey or Syria or Russia about the Turkish invasion there very soon. You see, the real issue is that the Turkish Prime Minister believes that if he can stir up a conflict with Russia, that it will help him rejoin the nice place that he used to be at in NATO, his standing in NATO, when he was all but put out by the little fiasco that he had about the coup. And since we have now taken the nuclear weapons out of Turkey and placed them in Romania, he is just real contentious about doing something in Syria. No real threat versus Putin now. He doesn't have one. Those nuclear weapons are gone, and it's about to be thrown under the rug just as Trump takes office before he has any solid say about either side. Now, what difference this will make, I don't know, but I do believe a war with Russia and Turkey is on the frontier as well. In other news, the Russian Ministry of Defense has declared a pseudo-state of war, activating the dead-hand nuclear order issued to the strategic missile forces. Now, we know that in the last 16 months, Putin has done this 3 times. Made these false claims, this false news, even being reported on the Watcher Society as a state of war. It's not really a state of war. He hasn't launched anything, and he's not going to, but the order came after it was discovered that the United Kingdom had nuclear warheads pointed toward Russia. That's a big secret, and were apparently preparing for a first strike against military and civilian targets. Well, the source of the intelligence is unknown, but it's possible that the accident rerouting of sensitive UK nuclear data through Russia this week could have provided Russia with the necessary intelligence to reach this massive conclusion. The intention of the nuclear forces of the United Kingdom preparing for a first strike against the Federation was revealed by the Russian security service, the FSB, the electronic intelligence experts working in conjunction with Kaspersky Lab, who discovered last month a massive U.S. national security agency cyber espionage program targeting not just Russia, but everyone on Earth, particularly Great Britain. Now, the FSB and Kaspersky Lab experts who have uncovered the Russian hack on the British nuclear secrets, the MOD reports, were able to swiftly reverse engineer the computer codes involved in this massive NSA spying operation. Now, when I say it's an NSA spying operation, that's what started it. The counterattack was from Russia that then uncovered all these hacks, which was enabled them to electronically obtain the launching codes and coordinates of all the UK's nuclear weapons, showing their plan to launch first strike against the Federation during the week of March 15th. I believe that to be an exaggeration and mostly countercurrent fake news. But the fact is that Russia has known for many decades, since the end of World War II, that the United Kingdom was definitely against them, and as part of NATO, definitely has their nuclear weapons pointed at them. So this is not any real new revelations to Russia or the FSB, but the email intercepts that Russia was able to get showing the various places that were targeted probably was. And this information of this highly successful FSB intelligence operation has been suppressed in the West. And some counter-current news has been reported by a few technical websites that I went through and looked, including The Verge, in which their article reported yesterday titled "A Network Error Routed Traffic for the UK's Nuclear Weapons Agency Through Russian Telecom Net." In part, It says, for the past week, something strange has been going on in the European internet. For 5 days, web traffic from Texas to certain addresses in the UK have been routed through Ukrainian and Russian telecoms, taking a detour thousands of miles out of the way, many hops. Network traffic often takes a circuitous route as the result of network congestion or interconnections, but normally intelligence is never routed that way, and neither would have been enough to account for these routes. Instead, it was the result of a bad route announced by Ukraine's Vega Telecom inserting itself in between, and somehow Russian hackers were able to pull this off and locate the UK's targets within Russia, and most all of these, believe it or not, are civilian targets. Apparently, the British are going to leave the Americans, the military targets, while the British take out the Russian people. Was a shocking revelation, and it still is. And I believe that is the only real part here that's true. It's particularly disconcerting because of the sensitive nature of many of these sites that are involved. Among the dozens of sites were UK's atomic weapons establishment, which is tasked with managing and delivering the UK's nuclear warheads, as well as UK's official mail service, the Royal Mail. The U.S. defense contractor Lockheed Martin was also running a VPN connection that was caught up in the redirection as well, and we do not know if certain plans of certain future fighter jets were on these servers, and apparently they were. So Russia has now got years and years of technical manuals on aircraft that have been tested, never built, and that's just very, very unfortunate. Upon the MOD's confirmation of the UK's intention to launch these nuclear first strike against the Russian Federation, against its population, this report continues, Russian military forces throughout the country were immediately activated with a special emphasis placed upon rocket-ready artillery maneuvers on the southern borders and missiles, mobile missiles pointed now at Great Britain and London specifically. Now, that was just ordered in the last 2 days, so you understand Putin's just tit for tat on this. Nothing is going to happen. There is going to be a sneak attack, folks, upon the United States by Russia. I predict that is part of Bible prophecy. I don't believe that it's right now. I don't believe that this is it. I don't believe that this even really concerns much of it, but more further pounding of the war drums. Because Foreign Minister Lavrov, this report notes, further warned the West this week even that Moscow would respond to NATO in an adequate way. His little smirky grin, as thousands of Norwegian troops neared the Russian border this week, preparing for influx of U.S. Marine Expeditionary Brigade, estimated to number between 14 and 18,000, whose tanks, armored vehicles, artillery, ammunition, and battle equipment have flooded into Norway this past year. We are building up a massive army in Norway, and it looks like something's going to happen there. I would definitely keep an eyeball on that. Now, a lot of times, Ministry of Defense in the UK does things after they've been found out that is more or less a deception, a way to cover the wool over people's eyes, doing certain things that make you scratch your head and go, huh? But what I've been able to find out from my contacts is that the Ministry for Civil Defense Emergencies and Elimination of Consequences of Natural Disasters, it's called Emergicom, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the MVD in Great Britain, previously issued an immediate travel ban on, dig this, firefighters, ambulance drivers, rescue troopers, and tens of thousands of other police officers, prison guards, and other law enforcement agencies who were deemed critically needed during times of war. In other words, making them all activated so that they would know that if there was to be a war, that they would all play their specific part, which I believe is just done to make Russia scratch its head a little bit and go, well, yeah, now that we've found out you activating all your prison guards and other law enforcement people, that's just, cannon fodder. Also to be noted through the contained, not really contained in the things that I found out from my contact, but there are other reports from London that Russian personnel and officers have been evacuated through their embassy, and that a mass activity is now being reported through Moscow, especially in and around Red Square, with the moving of many of their show tanks. Now, I call them show tanks because anytime there's a little squibble, Moscow routes these tanks. It's always been a hidden military signal. They know we're watching with our satellites. They watch us with their satellites, and anytime that they move their show tanks around Red Square, it means something in Diplo speak. So let you know that is currently going on. If Putin is the same old school Soviet thug that I believe he still is, then the nationalist plan will look like something like this. Number one, it'll be to provoke a crisis within the current crisis. Now, as I said, I don't believe this is a crisis. I don't really believe that the letting out of civilian targets in Russia for Great Britain's nuclear weapons is much of a big deal. Russia knew that probably years in advance, but to make those things public kind of swishes things around, and each side has to make it look good for their own populace, their own news reporting. For example, the shoot down of say, flight MH17, Flight 17, was actually supposed to be the shoot down of a Russian airliner that could then be used as a pretext for invasion. That's a little too clever for me, but imagine a sudden Russian lunge towards, say, Odessa, and the U.S. and the U.K. take the recent advice of Ben Judah in the New York Times and send troops to hold the airport there. Now we have exactly the NATO-Russia standoff for which Putin has been striving for many months. And I believe would use something like that to intervene in the Syrian crisis, since that apparently hasn't got big enough for Putin yet, or big enough yet for Obama to put any real American muscle. Now, number two would be to get some Russian soldiers killed. I don't believe that's going to happen. Make it sure look right on RT or any of the other Russian news stations, preferably with Ukrainian soldiers meeting Western weapons, or better yet, with NATO soldiers returning fire on innocent Russian peacekeepers and aid convoys, or whatever idiotic ruse Putin puts up next time. Like I said, I really believe that when you advertise that your nuclear weapons are pointed at another population's civilians, that they're going to react. Number three, Putin could use actually a nuclear weapon. I doubt this seriously. But NATO would be shattered as almost everyone west of Warsaw loses control of their bladder if something like that were to happen. Now, I'm not saying this is a good plan, but it might be the one Putin and his cronies are considering. I don't know. I just know that, of course, this is all pure crazy talk on many, many insane levels. And I think Putin is a smart enough man to know that it's mutually assured suicide. First of all, I can't even figure out how Putin thinks that he could secure the future of Russia by becoming the first nation since 1945 to use a nuclear weapon. And if the Russian president's goal is to make the world forget about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, place a permanent stain on the word Russia for all time's sake, like equating Russia with the word the devil, and unite virtually the entire planet against his still poor, weak country, in his aging military, particularly his aging Navy, his coal oil-fueled carrier that can't even land an airplane. He's not only unhinged, he's just plain stupid. We all know that Britain has some serious explaining to do, really fast, or face the bear, but also next, something else on Trump's own agenda. And I fear that's coming up very soon as well. Keep an eye on moves back and forth between the UK and Russia, because talk is cheap, but they're doing a lot of it. All right, we're going to switch gears one more time and on to the topic of this show. And although I don't have a lot to say about it, I am going to speak my mind. And it's concerning the Mandela effect. I don't know how many people have heard of that. It's supposedly the effect in which that things are being changed in time past as to affect the future and present. Verses being taken out of the Bible, events, names being changed. A lot of folks, I've noticed, a lot of these folks are suddenly talking about this, and to me, it is a pure hoax. It is a joke. And we're warned about this, actually, in Psalms 26. Do not sit at the table of the wicked. And there's a reason why the psalmist wrote this. Those that belong to such groups seem to think that our God is weak, and that the devil can somehow hack time in the entropy system. This is simply not true at all. As a matter of fact, I've studied time travel. I have a double ET in electronics, and I've studied time travel a great deal. I'm not a physicist, but I study physics, and I do not believe time travel is possible in an entropy system. I believe in an incorruptible system that it may be possible, but an entropy system, this is simply not true at all. And the devil, since the curse of Eden, has been stuck here with all of his fallen ones in the same entropy system. We've been stuck in this sinful entropy system where all things eventually break and are back to the dust that they are formed from. The Bible tells us this. We know this. Just as man makes silicon chips from the element to make supercomputers, those two one day will break and fall into decay and ruin. If the God that I love can raise folks from the very dead, i.e. Lazarus, and can raise himself from the dead, and can make stars and form entire cities in the incorruptible, as Paul said, a place for us who are and have become redeemed through the hearing of the word and faith into it, to the action of repentance, to the same God. And God's not able to protect one little book. We must have a pretty lousy God. But I don't believe that. If he lets the devil just change whatever he wants, whenever he wants, this certainly isn't true. Our God is Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, and he is worthy to rule everywhere, even in the heart of man. And he called the heart of man the most sinful place there was. So if you're involved with the... See, I'm knocking folks off the shelf right now. If you're involved with the Mandela effect, if you believe in it, if you understand it, folks, get out. Get out soon, fast, and now, as you are saying, and you're making a strong point in your heart, even if you don't even know, that you believe that our God is weak, and exalt the devil over Christ. We're not going to let that happen. Quit! Avoid those folks. Show them the light. Shine it on the corruptible. Show them the incorruptible, the word of truth in God, and show them that they are following Satan's own plan to make doubt of God. Because if you can make doubt of God, then you can make doubt on your salvation. And the devil would love nothing better than this. Run from this, folks. Run from the Mandela effect. Stay away from those groups. I'm warning you, it is an affront to God. Okay, let's move on to this before I start knocking anything else off. It is evident that something is up in the South Pole, and climate change alone can't explain it. In a previous show, we discussed that there is something very, very peculiar going on right now at South Pole. It's real funny because my contact has been able to show me that 6 top-of-the-line scientific vessels that are used by the United States Navy have now been directed to the Ross Sea. That's right. They're headed there right now at full speed. Though they are restricting what can be accessed, UAVs and satellite images are offering new information about the significance of Antarctica and the secrets that it's currently hiding. There is a definite covert military significance there, though little of anything is ever seemingly disclosed. I wonder why. There have been major conflicts between world powers over territories, and there are rumors of something beyond belief in the past of this magnificently unknown surface on our planet, covered in snow. All of you would like to see snow this year, but I tell you what, a lot of people would like to see no snow there, so that it would reveal the hidden. Startling images of a pyramid, or three, that are now on Google Earth that have not yet been blacked out, are sticking out above the ice, have been shared online, raising questions about the possibility of man-made structures and even ancient civilizations that may have existed in a past time when Antarctica was relatively free from ice. It could be that John Kerry has went down there to make a deal with whoever he's found there. Did you think about that? If the structures that have been discovered there in the snow, the icy continent, prove to be man-made, it could change our understanding of all of human history. It is that profound. The scientists have long believed the freezing climate in Antarctica was much warmer several thousand years back. 2009, boffins discovered pollen on the continent, suggesting temperature was once as high as 80 degrees Fahrenheit. As in 2012, scientists from Nevada's Desert Research Institute identified 32 species of bacteria from Lake Vita, East Antarctica, further suggest the climate was entirely different to the frozen tundra that it is today. Among those that have suddenly left to go down there on U.S. Navy research ships is confirmed a Dr. Vanessa Bowman. Now, she has previously come out and said, and we don't know now what she's headed down there for. We know that she was sequestered by the United States Navy to go there. But she's previously said, and I've got articles on her that go back, she says, go back 10 million years ago, and Antarctica was covered in a lush rainforest similar to those that exist in New Zealand today. Really? Of course, there are those that have dismissed the notion and insisted that the structure is a naturally occurring obelisk, basically a mountain, sticking out above the snow, and they could very well be right. I've looked at the pictures, and they could be pyramids, they could be a mountain. It's four-cornered, it's very symmetric, but I don't know. Till more is known, one of the many formations identified in Greenland and other parts of Antarctica, for example, from Greenland to Antarctica, for instance, some appear almost man-made. Find many photos that appear man-made, similar enough to the pyramids, but aren't actually so, just mountains. It's entirely possible that secrets of the past are, however, being uncovered, because there's been some dadgum particularly interesting things going on in the last 5 months there in Antarctica. And it's also possible that these secret projects are underway for purposes unknown. Things are changing very rapidly there right now on the mysterious frozen continent, largely something forgotten in its solitude from the rest of the affairs on Earth. Something is definitely for sure happening. U.S. Navy would not be so involved. Secretary of State John Kerry made an unprecedented journey there for what appears to be a flimsy pretext, a vague reference to concerns related to climate change issue, but took with him people, ufologists. Why just ufologists? Why former astronauts and ufologists would go with him on such a flimsy pretext as climate change? But on the other side of the coin, a Cold War has reignited, and the U.S. and its allies are preparing for unconventional warfare seemingly on every front. Maybe there's weapons down there. Alien weapons! Of course, ever since Roswell, we have been dying to get our hands on those, wouldn't you know? Curiously, astronaut Buzz Aldrin was medically evacuated from Antarctica just a few weeks ago, as everyone heard, and afterwards reported and was verified, tweeted, and deleted this very bizarre and possibly sarcastic message after just being put on the helicopter from seeing these things. We are all in danger. This is evil itself. That's from Buzz Aldrin. Hey, you know, you walk on the moon and say something like that after seeing something like this. I would take that to heart. Folks, he was not lying. We will sure have more about this soon on the WPN on KW Radio. We are going to find out the truth. We're going to keep digging. We're going to find out what's down there. Since we know John Kerry put Ross Sea and the rest of the continent on a ultimate lockdown for 35 years legally. You can't go there. If you were to go get on your boat right now, fuel up, and could make it that far to the Ross Sea, you'd be turned away. You're not allowed there for the next 35 years. Only on very high-profile people have been allowed even close to that proximity, now including former astronauts and even heads of states, doctors, and ufologists. Something about disclosure. They don't want you to know it's about to break down south, so I would definitely keep watching. This has been Mars for the Watchers of Prophecy News. Until next time, come hear me every week on KW Radio. I always have epic information for your mind.